So if Apple's iPad lineup wasn't confusing enough, with the addition of this new 10th gen iPad and the new M2 iPad Pro, things got even more confusing, and now recommending a certain iPad to a certain person is pretty much the hardest that it's ever been. So in this video, what I want to do is break down every single iPad that Apple sells currently, including the iPad 9th generation, which is still in the lineup. We're going to go over each one, see what accessories they're compatible with, see what OS they're compatible with, and what features it has that are exclusive to each of those certain tiered iPads. So hopefully, after watching this video, you have a better idea and a better understanding of which iPad you should get if you are in the market for one. But without further ado, let's go through all these iPads and see which one is right for you. Let's get it. Okay everyone, so let's get right into this video and start off with the 10.2 and 9th gen iPad, the entry-level iPad that is still currently in the lineup even after the announcement of the 10th gen iPad, which we'll touch on in a second. Again, this one starts at $329 and it comes in that black or silver colorway. You can go with either 64 gigs or 256 gigs, and those are pretty much the capacities for all iPads now moving forward aside from the iPad Pro lineup. But let's continue with this 9th gen iPad. And with this 9th gen iPad, you do get a Retina display, you do get True Tone, you do get Apple Pencil 1 support, you get the ability to use the Smart Folio keyboard case, which is that original like origami style, single angle keyboard case that was, for the time when it first came out with that 2015 iPad, it was great because it was very thin, very mobile, it could flip backwards. But now, compared to what we have, especially with the Magic Keyboard and now the Smart Folio keyboard case for the 10th gen iPad, it's a little bit dated, but you can still buy brand new from Apple to use with this iPad. Now, in terms of cellular connectivity, you can upgrade this to get cellular, but it does not come with 5G. You have to go with any of the other iPads to go with 5G, but you still get 4G LTE, and I believe it's about a $130 price point to upgrade it to that point. But if you do get this a fully loaded iPad 9th generation from Apple, everything brand new, so you go 256, you go cellular, you get the Slim Folio keyboard case, and you get the Apple Pencil of 1st gen, it will cost you $867 for an entry-level iPad. So to each their own, that is what you need to know about that iPad in terms of hardware, what it can be used with, and actual price point. Now, in terms of software, this iPad will be getting iPadOS 16 and probably will get at least 17, 18, maybe 19, so you are future-proof to a certain extent, especially if you just go with the regular 64 gig non-cellular version. For $329, it really isn't that bad of a tablet, especially if you are the type of person that's going to use it pretty much as a content consumption machine and throw it around the house, something to share with family members. Nothing too crazy will be done on it. Or it's also a great Chromebook, honestly, especially if you have a child that's, in elementary school, in middle school, and you need to give them the tablet to get some work done. You will be able to get that done because it still runs iPadOS 16, and even at the cheapest level with the A12 Bionic, and that's a chip that it is rocking. So at this point, it is a 3 or 4-year-old chip, but it's still plenty powerful, and all the apps in the App Store are so optimized for iPadOS, and they run so smoothly that even things like editing in LumaFusion, if you are editing in 4K or editing in iMovie, everything is so well optimized that you can technically do it. It'll just kind of be a little bit on the slower side, especially when exporting. So with this iPad, obviously it's the cheapest one, it's the entry-level one. In my opinion, it's for children, it's for school, it's for Chromebook usage, for lack of a better term. And it's a tablet you just kind of have in your purse, in your backpack, in your house to throw around to watch Netflix, watch YouTube, look up stuff on the internet whenever you're like having a discussion or an argument with a bunch of friends. So that is the entry-level iPad, and that is the cheapest one with the A13 Bionic. Now with these, we will be going in order from least expensive to most expensive. So next up is that new 10th gen iPad, which honestly, it looks great. And what I like about it is that it has probably the same exact form factor as the iPad Air, which means that accessories will work from the iPad Air, will work to this iPad 10th generation. Obviously, the pin connectors are not in the correct spot for you to use it with the Magic Keyboard, so keep that in mind. You cannot use it with the Magic Keyboard. But again, this is a brand new iPad. It does come in 4 different colorways. You get yellow, pink, blue, and then like a silver hue. And these colors do look a lot more punchy than the other colorways from the iPad Air and even the iPad Pro. So if you pick one of these colors, you better like it because it does look like it's going to be very punchy and very vibrant. And then you also get the 2 different storage options of 64 gigs and 256 gigs with this iPad. And upgrading to that 256 storage will cost you $150, so $600 gets you a 256 iPad 10th generation, and this comes equipped with the A14 Bionic. So this is the same A14 that was in the 12 Pro Max iPhones, and again, to each their own right. This is a very capable chip. It will be able to run a lot of applications and run them extremely well. Some other things to know with this iPad is that this iPad is the cheapest way for you to get 5G enablement and cellular on an iPad. And then another thing to note about this iPad is that for some reason, even though it adopted that new industrial design language with the flat sides and the flat edges, it now can lay flat on the front and the back and can stand up on its own. It still did not bring Apple Pencil 2 support. We all thought that since it was going to have that squared off design, it would just attach magnetically and we would be good to go. But this still has only Apple Pencil 1 support. And I figured this is how Apple is going to separate it in terms of tiers and justify maybe if you want to go with an iPad Air and use the Apple Pencil 2. But from a feature standpoint, both Apple Pencils do the same exact thing. Apple Pencil 1, there's no shortcut for double tapping to change, your instrument from eraser to pen tip. But outside of that, the Apple Pencils are pretty much exactly the same, except for the way that you charge them. An Apple solution to charging this Apple Pencil, because this iPad 10th generation is a USB-C enabled device, so there's no more Lightning port. And in order to charge that Apple Pencil, you need a Lightning port adapter for that. So what they did is that for $9, it's not included in the box, of course, Apple, but for $9 you can get an adapter where you plug it into the bottom of your iPad and then you plug in the Apple Pencil 1 into that adapter and then it charges. So again, very, very weird way to charge your Apple Pencil 1, but that is what we're dealing with. And then Apple also did release a brand new keyboard accessory for this iPad. It looks very similar to the Logitech Combo Touch if you guys have seen that, and it also looks extremely familiar when you compare it to Microsoft's Surface line. So it is a detachable keyboard, and then another attachment to the rear of the iPad which has a kickstand, which seems to have pretty much unlimited viewing angles. We're definitely going to test it. We did order one. We're going to get one in the studio to see exactly what we got going on there, but it looks really nice. I am impressed by that keyboard. It has a function row key, which is something that the $350 Magic Keyboard still does not have. And then the last thing to note about this iPad is that it did move the orientation of the selfie camera over to the correct orientation, which is in landscape mode. So that is the iPad 10th generation, and if you want to get a fully loaded iPad 10th generation with the appropriate accessories like that new keyboard and Apple Pencil 1, this entry-level iPad is going to cost you $1,106, and these prices that I'm talking about are US and they are retail pricing directly from Apple, so you probably get it a little cheaper on the education store, but these are US prices, so that means everywhere else around the world, this config is going to be $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 for an entry-level iPad again. That is not going to be a computer for a lot of people. And at that $1,100 price point, you are getting into laptop territory. You can get an M1 MacBook Air for $100 less that has a built-in keyboard already, the trackpad, and it is just a more laptop and more familiar experience. But the question is, who is this going to be for? Because with the A14, it does have a capable enough chip to get some serious work done in my opinion. You have a 10.9-inch screen, you have Touch ID on the lock button, so this can do a lot of the things that the iPad Air was doing, which is considered to be a laptop-ish, Chromebook-ish replacement as well. So this one is more of just a throw-around tablet because it's a little more expensive, you can get some more work done. This is probably a great note-taking machine. This is for somebody that's probably in high school, in school, again, wanting to use it in a Chromebook-style fashion. Somebody that uses it for productivity tasks in the beginning of the day, and then some more content consumption and some more leisure activities at the end of the day. But this is really for the person that wants a newish looking iPad that can do a little bit more than the 9th generation iPad, and if they do want to use it as a laptop, by all means they can. The next iPad on the list, which is probably the one that most people now are enjoying, especially after all the confusion that's going on with the different iPads, is the iPad mini. The iPad mini seems to be the only iPad that has a true purpose because of its size. So the iPad mini does start at $499. It sits right in the middle in terms of price for that 64GB model. It does come in 4 different colorways in Space Gray, Purple, Pink, and then also Starlight. But these colors are going to be a lot less punchy than the iPad 10th generation. Basically, if you hold this up to the light in a certain way, you might get that hue of the purple or the pink. But for the most part, those colors all look Space Gray. And then you have the Starlight, which is the one that kind of separates itself from a colorway perspective. But again, it starts at $499 for the 64GB model. Then you can upgrade to 256, which will bring you to $649. You can add 5G to this, which will get you to $800. So each one of these things is a $150 addition. And then you can also get an Apple Pencil 2, which is $130, which puts you at a grand total of $928 for a fully loaded iPad mini. Now this iPad mini does not have any pin connect, so there's no first-party keyboard accessory like a Magic Keyboard or a Combo Touch. You can buy third-party keyboards, Bluetooth keyboard accessories that work well with this iPad, but from a first-party perspective, there is no iPad accessory for this iPad mini. But the reason I say this iPad mini has its purpose is because of the size of it, right? The form factor. It is a 7.9-inch screen, 60Hz display, has Apple Pencil 2 support. This is, in my opinion, the perfect note-taking device. Take it wherever you want. Fits in a purse, fits in a pocket, fits in a back pocket. I see a lot of people online like editing their podcast on it because it does have the A15 Bionic chip on there, which is the same chipset that was in the iPhone 13 lineup. So this is the newest chipset, aside from the M1s, which we'll talk about in a second, that is powering this iPad mini. So this iPad mini, in my opinion, is kind of just like a bigger iPhone that can do a little bit more. I just wish the OS was a little bit more optimized for this one because, again, it's kind of like people are coding for a bigger iPhone or a smaller iPad, so things look even more shrunken than they need to be. I just want them to take more advantage of the entire screen real estate for this 7.9-inch screen. But overall, people seem to love this iPad out of most of the iPads in the lineup right now because, again, it seems to have a real purpose. The Apple Pencil fits in perfectly, it wirelessly charges, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It has USB-C, so people use this as their mobile, like, Lightroom editing machine. They just plug a dongle in, put their SD card in there, and then start editing their photos and post it directly to Instagram or to Twitter or to YouTube. So overall, this has a real purpose, which is an on-the-go productivity machine to the point where it's not a real computer, but then also a great leisure device where you can game on it, watch content, take it on an airplane. It fits anywhere. So that is the iPad mini, and I think it's a great buy. And now let's get into the iPad Air. The iPad Air is a weird one because it's technically the cheapest entry point to getting an M1 chip. So the iPad Air starts at $600 with 64 gigs. You can go up to 256 gigs of storage, get it to $749, then you can add 5G to it, get it to $900. This one does work with the Magic Keyboard because it does have pin connectors, so you can spend another $300 on that, and then an Apple Pencil. So all in on this iPad, you are spending $1,367 for an iPad Air. Think about that for a quick second. But with this machine, you can pretty much do anything that you would want, right? You can video edit, you can photo edit, you can do word processing, you can use the Microsoft Suite, you can use the Google Suite, you can have productivity tasks and you can get them done on this. The way that Apple cut corners and saved costs a little bit was with the screen technology, because this is still just a 60 hertz display, still Retina, like it has a great PPI, but it is kind of slow, especially if you're used to something like ProMotion on the iPhone 13 Pros and 14 Pros and also the iPad Pros, because once you go 120 hertz, it's very, very hard to go back. And then this does come in a few different colorways. You have 5 options to choose from. You have space gray, blue, purple, pink, and then starlight. But same thing applies to these. These aren't very punchy colors. They aren't very vibrant. So I always just stick to either starlight or space gray. But overall, this iPad Air is a little bit lost in my opinion, because for a little bit more money, you can get the iPad Pro and you can get real value in terms of a better camera system. You can get the ProMotion. You get Thunderbolt instead of USB-C. So I think this is going to be the iPad, the next one that's going to completely fall out of the lineup, and we're just going to have the 10th gen iPad, the mini, and then the Pros. The iPad Air, in my opinion, doesn't really have a place in this lineup, especially since the 10th gen iPad Pro, over the rest of the iPads that we had just talked about, is that it does have an M1 chip, so you can use Stage Manager with iPadOS 16. And it did support the extended monitor feature before Apple retracted it during the iPadOS 16 betas, which will eventually come back. So if that's something that you want to do and use it with a secondary monitor, then it will be powerful enough to do that with the right accessories. But again, outside of that, you can just get an 11-inch iPad Pro and get literally all of that, and then a lot more hardware upgrades, which are real tangible. So this iPad Air is probably the one that I would not recommend to anybody at this point. And then lastly, let's talk about the iPad Pros here, because the M2 iPad Pros did release, and the M2 iPad Pros, they didn't really show too much in terms of compared to the M1 iPad Pro. Basically, if you have an M1 iPad Pro, there is no point in upgrading to the M2 iPad Pro. If this is going to be your first iPad Pro, then by all means, you're going to love this iPad Pro, because the 11-inch starts at $800, the 12.9-inch starts at $1,100. The biggest difference between the two, aside from the size and the battery capacity, is that the 12.9-inch iPad Pro does have that new mini LED display, which does allow it to get much brighter, 1600 nits of brightness at its peak, versus the 11-inch, it's still 120 hertz and still ProMotion, but it is not mini LED. And then with these iPads, you do get the rear camera sensors, you get the LiDAR scanner, you have an ultra-wide sensor as well, you have Thunderbolt instead of USB-C, which allows for much faster transfer speeds, and then with the M2 iPad Pros, you do get the new Wi-Fi 6, you get more 5G bands, so if you do want to get 5G enabled iPad Pros, it will be faster and will be compatible with a lot more towers. And then you do get this new like hover feature with the Apple Pencil, which we will test out once we get the iPad Pro in the studio, because I'm not sure exactly what the tangible difference and feature, I guess, enhancements and improvements are going to be. But overall, that is what you get with the iPad Pro. And if you want to get a fully loaded 12.9-inch iPad Pro, just take a second and comment below what you think it costs to get a fully loaded iPad Pro with a Magic Keyboard and an Apple Pencil. I'll wait 2 seconds. It's going to cost you $2,877 to get a fully loaded iPad Pro. Now it does give you 2 terabytes of storage, which allows you to get 16 gigs of RAM for the M2 chip. You get a $350 keyboard, and then you also have the $130 Apple Pencil in there. But for $3,000 almost, there's a lot of other things that you can get for $3,000, and a lot of people don't see a tablet being worth $3,000. So that's to each their own. I'm a big iPad Pro advocate just because I like it as my main computer, but I usually get the baseline model or the 256 gigabyte storage model, and then just get external drives, because with Thunderbolt and with the revamped Files app, the transfer speeds and moving files around is actually very, very quick. But that is pretty much the rundown of all the iPads that are currently available on Apple's website. You have the cheapest of the cheap at $329 to start, and then you have the excessively expensive M2 iPad Pro at almost $3,000, which is, when I spec'd that out, it kind of baffled me a little bit, which is kind of insane. But all in all, I think the final iPads that will be in the lineup, let's say next year, is going to be this 10th gen iPad, it's going to be the iPad mini, and it's going to be the iPad Pros. That 9th gen iPad is going to be probably moved to just educational sales, and then the iPad Air, I don't see a purpose for it in my opinion. There's no purpose for that iPad Air unless you, for some reason, want the form factor of the 10th gen iPad, but you need the Apple Pencil 2 support, and you need the M1 chip over the A14. There's no real purpose for it. But that's going to do it for this video. If you guys didn't make it to the end, leave a little dolphin in the comments down below so I know you made it to the end. And also leave some comments down below which one you think is best for your use case. Are you somebody that wants to use your iPad as their main computer and use it for everything from photo editing to video to Microsoft productivity suites to content consumption to gaming? Then yeah, maybe the iPad Pro is the way to go. But if you just want to do it for some light internet surfing, to throw it around the house, to pass it along family members, maybe the 9th gen iPad is, as long as you're cool with that form factor, maybe it's the way to go there too as well. But that's going to do it, everybody. If you guys want to watch some more iPad OS, Mac OS, or iOS content, click on one of these videos right here and let me know what you guys think about this new iPad lineup, because in my opinion, Apple is confused, and so am I. But I'm Fernando, and I'm out of here. Peace.